Hello and welcome to the latest New Cool Film Reviews, the Film Cool podcast sideshow where we talk about the latest films that have just come out. I'm King Frogby, and to my immediate right is none other than Jay Leaf. The name tags are wrong, but hey, we're doing what we can.
Who cares? We're
Exactly.
going with it.
So this week we watched The Wolf of Snow Hollow. So this is just a recent film that just came out. It is directed by Jim Cummings. It's a screenplay by Jim Cummings, and it's also acted by Jim Cummings. Yeah, why don't you run and tell us a bit more about the plot, Josh?
So this is a comedy horror drama, and it follows a small town police officer by the name of John Marshall, who is played by Jim Cummings, and he's met with a horrific murder in his town. John is probably the most stressed out man alive, trying to run the entire police operation to take stress off his dad, who is the sheriff but has a heart condition, and he's also trying to be a single dad to his daughter at the same time. On top of all of this, he's a recovering alcoholic, and all the evidence for the murder, in which the public and the media are hounding him about, is leading to a werewolf. Something that John just will not accept, not pursue at all. This is Jim Cummings' second feature film after 2018's Thunder Road, and it also features the late Robert Forster in his final film role. Jim himself is an avid user of Letterboxd, and I thoroughly recommend everyone give him a follow. He is a phenomenal filmmaker, I will say. Like,
Yeah,
the amount of talent this man has is immeasurable, and I feel like in the very near future he's going to be one of the great filmmakers in the industry, especially with his acting as well. His acting here is
it was phenomenal. I think
heart wrenching.
I think
Yeah.
what I want to say to like the audience is like, if you are going to watch this film, just be prepared. Like, the film doesn't really follow a single tone, and I think that like if you know that going into it, it's a really enjoyable experience. If you go into it thinking that it's going to be one particular way or it's going to be really serious, because it kind of sets it up maybe initially as really serious and then flips. But then also it's a bit ridiculous at the same time. So like it strikes a balance, and like I think once you've seen the whole film, you understand like why that tone is in place, and we've had a bit of discussions around the themes and the use of why that works so well.
Yeah. And while this is, you're right, it's serious at the very start and then hits a very comedic tone for quite a while, but it's the sort of second transition, as we've both talked about, that's so gripping and heart wrenching and pulls this back into that sort of anxiety. Like, the horror from this film doesn't come where you think it comes from at all. Like, this is very much a, don't go into this thinking you're just going to have a bunch of fun, because there's parts of this movie that are not fun at all and are very, very sad to watch, and they are acted so supremely well that you're really going to feel for a lot of the characters and the positions they're in, and it's probably going to stick with you as well, because it definitely stuck with me when I was done watching it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I've thought about it a few times over the last couple of weeks and just been like, man, that was a really good film. So I think this is probably a really good spot. If that interests you, you should go and definitely check out this film. We're going to jump into now the spoiler section of the discussion, where we just sort of talk about a bit more of the themes, because I think that that's what we need to do. And
For this one, it sort of has to go into.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so stop now, and we're going to go into the spoilers. All right, so yeah, the themes that we're talking.
Rip the band-aid off.
Woo! So yeah, obviously we're talking about like the horror side of things is Jim facing his alcohol addiction, and I think that that's like, you see him deteriorate in such a way where it essentially becomes all consuming, and like him having to deal with the fact that like it's a werewolf, and like you seem kind of crazy if you're chasing a werewolf. You know what I mean? Like, and then he's also dealing
Yeah.
with like the disapproval from his
His
dad,
father.
who's like the chief of police, but it was also having like health issues. So I think that like the horror side of things definitely comes from like
From the
those,
human element.
yeah, the really human elements. Um,
Because
I
that's the
yeah.
thing, and I think I said it to you, is that I think the tone of the film, in a lot of ways, sort of is representative of alcoholism and alcoholics in the way and their attitude towards life. Like, oh yeah, we're just going to joke about everything and everything's going to be funny because it is at the start. And then while it's going down this sort of rabbit hole of relapse and everything, I think it brings home 2 points. Two is that he was sober for a long time in this, and it truly shows how quickly proper alcoholics can get back into alcoholism. And it truly makes me believe that Jim has dealt with someone in his family or someone like that who have had these issues in the past.
Yep.
And two, it makes you feel bad for finding things funny because it doesn't stop being funny, but the tone of it changes and the context changes and it makes the jokes real sad as opposed to funny. And I think that's a very like powerful technique, especially the way it's used here.
Yeah, and it's a fine line, and I think that like there's really good like story beats that like where it reveals like how much this is like messing with him, like his relationship with his daughter, like there's
Oh,
there's like
there's
this.
one scene in this movie that where he's in bed and his daughter's standing at the door, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
Yep.
I had goosebumps and everything, and it's
Yeah, like
just
even you just saying it then, just like,
yeah,
oh, it's like one of those like it's like that feeling when you're at a party and your mates like blackout drunk and all you want them is to be better, but
and
like
all he wants to do is keep drinking as well,
yeah.
and you know that it's going to be detrimental for the health and everything, but that's all they want, and you can't let them do it, and you love them, and it's a very heart wrenching time near the end of this movie.
Yeah, so I think in terms of like so like yeah, story wise I think it's fantastic. In terms of um cinematography, I like just to sort of jump to a different part.
Mm-hmm.
This is where it has a look about it, and I don't know. It's you can definitely tell that this was shot on like a $2 million budget.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. Something about it was a little bit jarring to me. It kind of feels like like obviously it is a fake world, but like it feels very plasticky
Yeah,
and fake. So I don't know. What did you think of the cinematography? Did you think it was like it serves its purpose?
I liked it from the perspective of I'm always going to be a sucker for the snow landscape. So the fact that he does all the sort of the long widescape shots and when you see the trees and the snow, I always love that aspect of things. But I see where you're coming from in terms of the world feeling sort of constructed in some way, but I feel like I'm going to compare it to another movie I've seen which tries to do a similar thing but does it nowhere near as well. And I think it's called The Dead Don't Die. Adam Driver and Bill Murray were in it last year,
Okay.
and it's a Jim Jarmusch movie, which is about a zombie movie. It's about a zombie apocalypse, but they both play cops, for example, and it's very meta. And Bill Murray asks a question, "So, what do you think it is?" And Adam Driver comes out with, "Well, I think it's zombies," and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And that's what I felt like was going on here. But there was I can totally understand where you're coming from, and that would also come from the fact that Jim has deliberately cast a lot of real good B movie actors to play very character roles, and it's a very character driven movie.
Yep.
And some of those may be cartoonish, but that also may sort of play into back to what we'll talk about with the themes, where his female partner who is in the film, how she's very bubbly and affectionate at the start, and again, like you think, oh, she's going to be with him through everything, but as soon as this downward thing starts, everything gets darker. And I think even in terms of the cinematography, it got darker. There was a lot more. There was a lot of day scenes at the start,
And
and
then
as
it's
he sort
transitioned
of
to night.
into the night, yeah,
Yep. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I think
yeah,
that's pretty fair assessment. I will say that one thing that threw me like initially, and maybe like I should have added this at the start, but in the reviews, they don't introduce Jim Cummings as the main character for maybe the first 10 or 15 minutes, and that was like a confusing bit where I was like super invested in this kid and his girlfriend and like the setup, and then they die and then they just throw away this guy's character, and I was like, what? I thought that was the story. And then like, no, it's actually about the police officer. So that was like one of
yeah.
those, and like also that kid has been in something that is like,
Oh yes,
he's a
definitely.
main actor, he's like a main driver
So you're
of.
expecting
So I
him
was
to be
expecting him to be the main guy. So that, I don't know, that was just one thing that like totally threw me through the loop, and I was like,
I
what?
I think he's hitting like potentially the one real cliche horror trope in doing that, in doing the opening kill.
Yes.
Because now that you've watched a lot more horror movies, you're sort of used to the fact that you'll always have the 15-minute, I think they call it cold open or something, where
Yeah.
15 minutes is a long time for it. Usually it goes for like 2 or 3 minutes, sometimes even shorter than that. Well, then you have the movies that sort of play with the idea, like the Friday the 13th remake, which has a whole, and Joel talks about this a few weeks ago on the podcast, has a whole 30-minute, like 20 to 30-minute intro of a completely different set of characters that Jason just offs one after the other. When you're like, oh, this is the characters of the movie. He's going to kill one, and then we're going to get into it. No,
Yeah.
they introduce a completely new set of characters, and the title screen comes up real late as well. And I think it did in this as well. The title screen comes up
It
after
does. It
the.
came up like, and I think that the thing that like yeah, so like it threw me because like it wasn't like it was just one. You know, like usually they do a cold open and it's like one shot or one scene that's 15 minutes. But no, like these characters go to like, they start off in a restaurant and then they end up in a like cabin together, and then he goes and has a shower after a jacuzzi scene, and then it cuts, and I'm like,
Oh,
so I'm like,
I just remembered what that guy's from.
what's
I
he
remember what
from?
the guy's from for you. He's from American Vandal, that Netflix
Thank
TV
you.
series. And I think he might have. I think he's an internet star of some description.
Okay, that's probably why I know him.
And he was actually quite good in this.
Oh
I
yeah,
feel
yeah, he
like
was
he has
great.
the look of. He always has that look of someone who just can't act and that sort of thing. But every time he's in something, I'm like, no, you're genuinely good at playing this very specific role.
Yep, yep, absolutely.
For people who haven't seen Thunder Road, I'll just throw this in there quickly. I personally haven't seen the full film. I've seen the short film,
Yep.
and it is an experience to say the least.
So this is Jim
I'm
Cummings' film.
trying to work my way up to watching the full film, but this is a very, very Jim Cummings film in the sense that, yep, it's a very anxiety-driven time.
Yep.
It is funny, but also very sad. And yeah, just going there wanting to not feel anything specific, but you're definitely going to feel a lot.
And this is sort of one of those films that, so like I always try and like put into perspective like what sort of film this is going to be, and like could I recommend this to my parents? This is probably one of those films I could recommend to like the everyday moviegoer.
Yeah.
I could see them quite enjoying this and thinking it's like, because it has like that little bit of supernatural element, but then like it's mainly about the characters, and I feel like that it like it's a great movie. Like check it out. Like I think that like yeah, I enjoyed this a lot more than some of the other new movies that have just come out.
And just one last little thing about Jim himself. I think it really should be mentioned that it's funny that his sort of charisma and everything sort of goes against the way he looks, because Jim Cummings could be your everyman comedy actor who's just in any film, has that sort of basic look, but once he gets going, it's something really special to watch.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the fact that he's writing, directing, producing his own movies to such a high quality, and this is his second film, he this is definitely someone you should keep your eye on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, that was the latest episode of New Cool Film Reviews, The Wolf of Snow Hollow, directed by Jim Cummings, starring Jim Cummings, and screenplay by Jim Cummings. You can follow us every Wednesday. We release a podcast. You can follow myself, Letterboxd, King Frogby. You can follow Josh at JLuke. Thanks so much for listening, and we will catch you on the next show.